Welcome to Art and Hustle Podcast, a gallery of conversations. I'm your host today, D. Harper. Today I got a good friend of mine, James Woods, goes by the name of William Moore. I'm going to let him introduce himself in a second. And again, we got his friend, ALFREDO Cardona. And if he knows him, I know he's a dope dude. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and we're going to get this thing moving along right now. Go ahead, James.
Hey, how's it going? James Woods, also known William Moore. An author. Actually just finished my second book, the Twisted Fairy Tales series. And I actually have a previous book, Sparrow's Valley, which is the first part of a 7-part book. Kind of been in the tech world for quite some time, about 15 years working with Fortune 500 companies. And I also own a software development company, Mojave Q, so I'm in the networking ad space. And I've also been in the esports organization world for a while. I actually had one of the first online magazines for esports. We actually interviewed Joe Powers, who was one of the original managers over at Tesla back in like 08, 07. And I owned MVG, Most Valuable Gaming, which was one of the, if not the #1 Super Smash Brothers team in the world. So just kind of been all over the place, but it's going well. Thanks for having me.
No doubt, man, no doubt. Alfredo?
Okay, my name is Alfredo Cardona. I'm an illustrator based in Tijuana, Mexico. I'm a character designer, creature designer, and also an anatomy teacher. The thing that gets me on is actually like creating characters for stories, to work with clients that are thriving to get their story going on, to get a visual development out of it. I'm actually very eager to see what all of my projects right now are like in the 75% of completion. So I'm very eager to see that. I also have a card game that I'm developing. And well, that's it right now for the introduction.
Okay. Good enough. I'm gonna jump right into the first question. Is how's the quarantine affected you? You know, with being creatives and what in your space, and how's the quarantine affected you?
Okay, well, for me, it was actually an opportunity of growth, because at the moment I was working at Sony. And I was working at Coyote, a series. I was with Michael Chiklis, he was a producer. We were working.
Oh, wow, nice.
And at the 7th of 12 episodes, we got canceled because of the quarantine. So we just got like fired, you could say.
Wow.
And I went home, but that gave me the connections to stay with the team that I was working on. So in the meantime, I worked with freelancing, where I worked with commissions, and then I got hired again for Disney Plus with the same team I was working on. So it was actually the best thing that could have happened for me, because it was actually working from home and having all of these artist time for me, like having like not this office hours, and actually being well-rounded for myself. So I can say that it has been a positive, and the negative side was that like I couldn't see like my friends, and I couldn't do a lot. Like I couldn't cross the border because I'm from Tijuana, so I cross the border like at least once a week or once a month to get all the groceries, all the clothing, everything I got it was from US. So actually that being shut down, like it was quite the thing. Yeah. But in general terms, it was positive.
Yeah. I tell everybody I run into that unfortunately this COVID pandemic was, if you're of a certain vibration, I'm gonna say it like that. If you have a certain higher caliber vibration, you see this pandemic as a gift and a curse. You have to.
Yes.
Because unfortunately people have passed away.
Yes.
But it gives everybody time to get still and get into your own space, either inward work, or getting your body together, your mind together, your spirituality together, or your creativity together. So I tell everybody this pandemic was a gift and a curse. And I would hope a lot of people come out of it, once it's all said and done, 10 times better than when they first went into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, from my aspect, it was definitely a blessing. I never really saw it as a curse. So good thing for me, I actually had the tech side. So once tech, you basically just need a computer and internet connection. So for me, it allowed me to not have to. So what I was doing when I was writing my book initially is I literally had an app, Pages, on the iPhone that I would literally write like 3 or 4 pages of my book to work and back home on the subway.
Mhm.
So when COVID hit, then I was able just to focus on writing from home. And, you know, I do my work from my day job, but it gave me opportunity to, that time that I was commuting, because obviously if you're writing 3, 4 pages on a cell phone, you're editing it the whole nine. So being able to work from home, that was actually a blessing. I don't know if I would have finished the book as quickly as I would have if it wouldn't have been for COVID. So it kind of gave me the time to actually focus and not make excuses to actually do that book. So for me, it was definitely, from the art side, it was a blessing. On the tech side, I wasn't really affected at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was definitely a blessing for me because it allowed me to finish that project and actually start. I don't know if I would have met Alfredo or been able to focus on some of the projects that I'm working on if I wasn't doing COVID. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID. Another thing is, because of COVID, I was able to, I left New York. I was paying way too much to stay in Brooklyn, and I ended up moving to Colombia. So I've been in Medellin, Colombia off and on for the entirety of COVID. So that allowed me to be able to invest money that I was making into paying for other things like, you know, Alfredo to do my artwork, to invest in a lot of promotion, social media management team. So it was definitely a blessing for me.
Okay. How did y'all meet again?
A mutual friend. It's actually 2 people. My best friend, Sebastian, I don't know if you know him. Sebastian introduced me to someone that I hadn't spoken to over a decade, Jermaine Clark, who was like 2nd or 3rd in command at an organization called Empire Arcadia, which is like, they're in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most wins of an esports team in history.
Okay.
So Jermaine was actually working with Alfredo, and Sebastian said, "Oh, you remember Jermaine, right?" He's like, "Yeah, he's working with this dope artist that's doing work with Sony Pictures and Disney." He was like, "You need to reach out to him," and we just kind of vibed and it worked.
Oh, okay. What's your influence? What, like in your respective fields? What is your influence? You're like, James. You're dope, dude. James drew my first tattoo that I have. A friend of mine passed away. He drew my first tattoo, and I still have it every time I look at it, I be like, that dude is dope, man. And he's a great artist himself. And I don't know how much you really draw anymore, but he's smart as hell with the tech, and then with his drawing capabilities, and a writer. So he's like uber creative in my world. Like, you know, hats off to you, man.
Yeah.
See what you're doing right
Thank
now. I actually love what you're doing with that spin on the tails and everything. So it was just
definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, the things that you're doing and how you got really when did it start.
So from the writing aspect, I started writing poetry. My mom was very big on education. Me and my brother, you know, did very well in school, college, the whole nine. And when I was little, like 3, 4 years old, my mom invested a lot in, I would say, obscure stories. I mean, books that I don't remember the name of them, don't remember the author, and I don't even know if you can find them anywhere. Okay. So I had the typical, you know, the fairy tales and the Care Bears and, you know, all the stories that everyone knows about. But she would give me these fantasy books that you would never find anywhere. They were just random author books.
Right.
So that was kind of, from the story standpoint, that's how I really got into fantasy and sci-fi and that aspect. From the poetry side, I honestly don't remember how I got into poetry. I just started rhyming things around like 5, 6 years old. So when I was 6, I actually had my first poem published, and the school, I went to a Lutheran school. Okay. So they had the church. I didn't go to that church, but they had a church. And the teacher, we had a project where we had to, that's where it was. I started writing poetry in school. The teacher actually read one of the poems I wrote for one of my classes and contacted my mom and asked if they could have it into the school play, into the church play. So that was kind of how I got into poetry. But writing for me was it was never the cool thing when I was younger. So I used to hang out with a lot of people that played sports. You know, I did martial arts, football, baseball, basketball, swim camp.
Hold on.
My mom put me in everything.
Basketball too. I don't know if he's still nice, but he had a crazy dribble, man. He had a crazy dribble. It was like, don't sleep on the dude with the glasses.
Oh no, I actually have there's a basketball court at the apartment complex I live in, so I play every day.
Nice.
But it was never the cool thing. So I used to locally do a lot of local competitions, state competitions, but I would enter them pretty much anonymously. So no one knew I was a writer.
Okay.
And from the art standpoint, there was a couple people down the street from me who were in, I can't remember, it was called NOCA, I think it was. It was like a program specifically for artists in New Orleans. And they went to that school and that program, but I didn't have the time to attend. Mm-hmm. So my thing was I would get like free classes from what they were learning in school. So after practice and after school, I would go over to their house and they would teach me what they learned during the school. So that's how I kind of kept my art chops through like middle school and high school, was not so much going to a formal school, but learning from people who were looking to do art for a living and going to those specialized schools.
Right.
And I just inspiration. I've always been a people watcher. I like to get a better idea of how people think, how people act based upon their environment, you know, the nature versus nurture. And I just kind of learned and took in different points of references throughout my life that kind of became my reference for my poetry and my stories. Because people would always ask me, you know, how do you overcome like writer's block? And I had this conversation with Alfredo, is the only time you really have writer's block is when you're trying to create something that you've never experienced or you don't know anything about. So as long as if you think about it, if you ever have a conversation with someone about rap,
you're conjuring.
Yeah,
exactly.
If you're talking to someone about lyricism or rap or writing, you will never have a writer's block because you know it, you live it. Alfredo will never have a writer's block or have a blank in regards to his artwork if he keeps in his niche. Now you can always study and learn about that and become more versed and have more points of reference in those other areas. But until you actually have those neural pathways in your brain, when you try to use something that it isn't there, then you become stuck where it's like, wait, because you don't know anything about it and you're trying to create something that's not there.
That's really interesting.
So I've always made it a point to continuously try to learn and read and speak to a lot of different people. So I have so many different reference points so that when I do write my story, I write my poetry, I have so many places to pull from. So I never have to worry about will I blank or will I not be able to continue whatever project I'm working on.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you there because I want to hear your story now. That was good, man. That was really good. Alfredo, your influence.
My influence, I would like to start from the beginning when I was 2 years old with the Power Rangers.
You remember when you were 2?
Yeah.
Oh, you're a smart motherfucker.
Memories. Like, I remember my second birthday. I was a Batman in San Diego. Like I remember the piñata. Like
yeah.
Like the bags of candies, everything. I have a very vivid visual memory.
Okay.
So when I was that little, I remember that I saw the Power Rangers, and then I saw the Saint Seiya, the Caballeros del Zodiaco, or Knights of the Zodiac. I saw them, and when that, and also my dad was a painter and a draftsman, so everything was.
He was always around colors and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I remember being in the living room with my parents, and I was drawing everything that I could, and that was like the beginning. I saw the anime when I was 2. Like I was younger than a lot of people because in Mexico the cartoons, they were like in the same niche as like Looney Tunes and Saint Seiya or Dragon Ball. It was the same thing because they were cartoons. They didn't have like this rated for different ages. So I saw those like all the blood and the killing and all that stuff when I was too young. And I was like, oh, I couldn't go back to Arthur and Barney and that shit. I was too invested in all that stuff going on. Yeah, so I was drawing a lot since then, and then Pokemon, Dragon Ball, all that stuff came in, and I was a little kid growing with all that stuff, but I like to draw all of that, and I always love to draw my own characters of those like Pokemons. I made all my own Pokemons, my own characters in Dragon Ball, my own everything. So my most influential part would be like I didn't know of the artists that drew them back in the day, but I knew I wanted to be like them. Right. So until I was in maybe middle school, I started to know about like the actual authors of those mangas or animes or cartoons. Then in high school, I just started to see and to ingest all of those like artists that, because when I was a little kid, I just thought like the franchise was like a whole thing, but I didn't
universe in a sense.
I didn't thought about the actual mind behind it. I just knew that I wanted to be that guy, but I didn't actually invest my time in knowing those people that were doing that.
Right? Yeah, the backstories and the intricacies of it. Yeah.
So for starters, like the most influential part was being like Japan, because they made like literally the video games, the anime, the everything that I used to like since I was a little kid. And video games, like fighting games, were a big part and influential on my art. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Soul Calibur, Tekken, all of those games actually like developed an interest in me in anatomy and character design and like movement, dynamism, all that stuff. So when I was in high school, I started drawing like Daigo Ikeno, like an artist from Street Fighter, like from 3 and 4, and I loved his style. Then I just went into Kim Jong-gi, the crazy Korean guy that draws everything from his imagination, and he can draw like whatever he takes in. Like he's like a god, man. Like it's weird to see his drawings and how he comes up with the brush pen. And there's no under sketch. He just goes over it, and then like it's 3 meters by 4 meter long with drawings.
It's interesting you said that, because I was just thinking like I want to dive deep into like the creative realm for a minute. And as you two are like really great artists, and I always wondered, I can't draw to save my life, and I always wish I could. I think it's wonderful when you can draw. Like when you have something that just comes to your mind, you're inspired to draw. Did you have like the whole vision in your head and you just start doing? How's that process go for you?
Okay, there's a lot of thought into it, because well, it depends. If I'm going to draw for myself, if it's going to be like a creative session for me to come with the stuff that is gonna be in my head later, or am I going to be drawing for some like either someone else, or is it a commission, or did I just play a lot of Street Fighter and I just wanted to draw Ryu or Sagat? It depends. It depends on the day. But if I want to create for myself, first I study cultures. I study history. I study like geography, biology at that point. So if I want to draw like anthropomorphical animal tribe of tigers that they're warriors, I just go into like different cultures and everything, like all of that, even reading, not even like images themselves, it starts like creating this paths in my head. Then I have like this sort of idea and I just start to draw, and if I like the first draft, I just go along with it.
Right.
But when I have my first character, it's just like a snowball effect. It just goes from there, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But I think of archetypes. I think of like stuff that will make sense in terms of what's next. And I just start drawing that, because if I need like a buff character, I just draw like the big silhouette and I just construct over it. It's not like I have the entire image in my head. It's more than I have. It's like constructing. It's like more like it's more on the engineer side than the artistic side, if you could say. Yeah. Because I had to construct in this archetype field. So it's like it's more like that.
Okay.
Than just having the whole thing in my head.
James?
From the art side or from the written side?
The art.
From the art? A lot of it had to do with, and we had this conversation before, a lot of reference points. I am an avid manga, anime watcher, cartoon. Like I was never into like documentaries and like real people when I was younger. I was always big on those type of references. And then I used to always work with a lot of people that created a lot of custom artwork. And one thing about how my brain works is numbers and pictures always stick in my head for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Names, words, like I can meet you today and tomorrow I don't remember your name, just the way it is. But if it like images, they kind of stuck in my head. Yeah. And when I'm drawing something, it's not that I can see exactly every detail, but I know the different parts. Like for instance, when you draw, the arm or the perspective, there's different techniques with the line and the circles. Alfredo knows what I'm talking about. It's kind of like that initial under sketch when you're creating, and you can kind of fill in like the details of the arm and the hands and those type of aspects. So there's certain basics and techniques that you learn that make the final product easier and more symmetrical that you're drawing. But I never have like a set, the whole picture of it. Sometimes it's as I go along, it kind of comes to me, but I have enough of those basics and those other techniques that it kind of comes together.
Okay. Let's talk more about the your current projects.
Okay. Well, as of right now, I'm working with Jermaine Clark with the Zucker project. He's designing this game / novel / animation project that is going to be about Egyptian culture.
Nice.
And I'm actually designing all the characters for it. Like there's a lot of it. I've drawn probably already like I want to say 40 characters with like facing front, facing back characters. I'm working with James with the Fairy Tales project, and damn, those characters have they have a lot of soul into them.
I can tell. I can really tell. Like those characters look like they're people, and
yeah,
they look like actual people that you just like. Yo, stand still. Let me draw you. And and I was gonna ask you, are you the artist on the project? And
yes,
it's incredible. Those characters are amazing. Those characters are amazing.
Alfredo has a gift for taking the idea, description that you have in your head and creating a couple sketches, and one of them is always perfect. It's like, that's exactly what I saw in my head. Like he has a way of literally pulling out whatever vision that you have for whatever character you have based on your description and making it like reality.
Well, they say that they're magic in Mexico, so he might be a psychic.
Most of the time, it's the first character. I don't know if you have to tell that. Like the first character is always the one that you like, and then the other two for me are characters that have pieces that will help the first character. But I didn't want to like the flurry, like to just pack it a lot.
So, and that's what happens every time.
Yeah.
You give me three, and I'm like, I like this first one, but I like the second one's hat. I like the third one's shoes and belt, and I like the way the second one is holding a specific weapon. He's like, cool. And then like an hour or two later, he'll give me the updated sketch that's literally a combination of all of them in one. I'm like, that's the one.
Right, right, right. That's magic, man. Like, is the book out? What's the plan for the project? Is it going to be like an animated series of some in the plans, or is what?
So right now, just in regards to my project, Twisted Fairy Tales is actually initially going to be a 3-part series. The first book was published May 25th. I'm working the second book now. I should be finished with writing and editing by end of October, middle of November. So I'm writing like 3 pages a day towards the book. I've actually written a treatment and Bible for the animated series. I have a couple connections. I'm going to be working with a guy to create the pilot episode. And I'm also working with another connection who's going to do the musical score for the pilot. And I've had initial conversations with, a friend of a friend who works at Amazon and one at HBO. And I got some very positive feedback on the ideas of the book. But once I finish a pilot, getting it scored, and I have enough characters, obviously, for the first episode that Alfredo worked on, for the pilot episode, we're going to actually start pitching it. So I'm also in the process of creating 3D characters, 3D versions of the characters that you see on the Instagram. And I've created a website that's kind of going to bring everything together. So just a little background on the book. Twisted Fairy Tales was, I originally saw, there was an old colleague of mine who had created some artwork many years ago. And I was at the office, I saw the artwork, and I was like, oh man, that's cool. I was like, I wonder what the origins of those stories would be. So I literally went back and I started doing all this research on the original fairy tales, not the Disney version, not the Brothers Grimm version. And the original versions were they were not made for kids. Maybe to scare kids, but they were not made for kids. Like Pinocchio killed the cricket. Wizard of Oz, 10 Man killed over 100 of those, like chopped up like 100 of those animals. And Rapunzel, the queen, kicked the sorceress kicked the prince out of the 4th-story window, and he stabbed his eyes on the thorns and went blind. Like all these stories were really bad.